Everybody gets some lunch.
All right, we can call to order the City Council Business and Community Affairs Committee meeting. It is Thursday, August 4th, 2022 at 4:00 p.m. Do you have everybody on your roll call?
I don't call the roll.
You don't call a roll. That's even easier. One agenda item, discussion with Norman Arts Council regarding the public art program.
I
So-
didn't realize we were it.
You were it. The number one discussion of the
One and
day.
only.
So, Aaron, would you,
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, I can go down here and operate. Well, thank you for having us here to talk to you about this this proposal that we've been thinking about for some time at the Norman Arts Council and with Public Arts. So just to give you a little bit of background, the Arts Council and the City of Norman have a really long history of collaboration in the arts, going back over 40 years to the formation of the Hotel Tax Grant Program. That program is over 40 years old now, and with that program, we have administered and granted out over $4.2 million of public funds to the arts organizations in Norman. In 2007, the Norman Public Arts Board was formed. I know Debbie Williams and Catherine Walker worked really hard on that, along with Larry Walker, no relation, who was the original Public Arts Board chair, longtime chair. And then in 2016, with Norman Forward, Larry Walker and I came to City Council and made a proposal that the 1% for art that was associated with Norman Forward would be administered by the Norman Arts Council. And then we were contracted with the city to administer those funds. Let's see, where is it? Okay. So this is the mission statement of the Public Arts Board, to enhance Norman's image locally, regionally, and nationally by ensuring the creation of the highest quality art for display in our community's public places. So public art is rapidly expanding in Norman, largely due to the success of Norman Forward. Public art is also expanding beyond the boundaries of public property. So we're seeing more and more projects that are happening, not just in Norman, but all over, that are within the public view, but aren't necessarily on city-owned or county-owned or state-owned property. So to stay relevant in public art, we really feel that Norman actually needs more attention to this program. These are the current Public Art Board members. We have 4 members right now. Amy Johnson, Tara Burnett, Cody Giles, and Ron Collette. Tara is here in the room with us as one of the Public Art Board members. And then we've always had ex officio members, people who represent both city and Norman Arts Council administration. So that's Jason Olson and James Briggs, and of course Veronica also is in on those meetings, and then Debbie and I serve as the administrative for the Norman Arts Council. But what we're proposing today is that the Public Arts Board becomes solely a committee of the Norman Arts Council, forming the Norman Public Arts Committee. These are the kind of the 5 main advantages of doing that, which I'll go into more detail on each of these. So that first benefit is that it defines the legal standing of the Public Arts Board or the Public Arts Committee. So as a committee of the 501c3, the legal responsibilities of board and committee members can be more clearly defined. So there's been an ongoing confusion about what body, whether it's the NAC or the city, has the legal responsibilities and therefore the oversight of the actions and the activities of the Public Arts Board. Clarifying this is extremely important to the Norman Arts Council, and it's something that we have been trying for multiple years now to have resolved. The NAC has carried the fiduciary responsibility for the Public Arts Board since its inception. The financial activities of the Public Arts Board are all reported on R990. And we're happy to continue doing that as long as we can find a way to bring the Public Arts Board into the Norman Public Arts Committee of the Norman Arts Council. Trying to see how I do this on here. There we go. So the Norman Arts Council has really thoughtfully written bylaws and policies, and all of our committees are guided by these, and all of our committees have input into edits as committees grow and morph, and sort of this natural progression of programming and missions that happens in committee work. The second benefit, and probably one of the most important things, is that we really think that this is going to increase community involvement in public art. Having the Norman Public Art Committee as part of the NAC presents opportunities to more fully understand how each body works, and have constructive and open dialogue, which would lead to both being more efficient. Working well together is always more productive. It'll be easier for the Norman Public Art Committee to recruit members. They would have the help of the Norman Arts Council Board and other committee members in doing that. And since public art is a really, is very timely, and it's a really popular discipline of the arts, we've become really aware that there are members of the board and of the community who are interested in participating and could be very helpful to the advancement of public art in Norman. There has been this kind of general air of mystery around the Public Arts Board and how it operates, but we feel like under the Norman Arts Council, the community would have increased awareness of public art processes, which would help us to make public art more accessible. Just about a month ago, we were at Main Site and had the Norman Next group there, and Mayor Heikkila, you were there talking to them. And there was a young man in that group who kind of expressed some frustration about the city and having young professionals kind of being underrepresented on committees, and that he had specifically applied multiple times to be on the Public Arts Board, and he'd never been invited, and he'd never heard back why. So we really want to make this committee more open and accessible to the community members who have that interest in public art, who want to be a part of the process and who want to understand the process. Under the NAC, that individual would have been welcome to join the committee without need of any kind of formal appointment process. So the third benefit is that it really frees up the committee to act more nimbly. So speaking of appointments, over the past 5 years, the Public Arts Board has had 11 appointments, and with the exception of those that are still on the board, every one of them has resigned before their term was up. Appointments work in some cases and not in others. So we would really like to be able to open up this committee and the opportunity to provide service to anybody in the community who is interested. A lot of organizations are actually struggling right now to have enough members and volunteers to be effective and to maintain quorums regularly. So as a committee of the Arts Council, public arts membership would not be legally tied to open meeting laws, and that would be actually a huge responsibility lifted off of them. We would be able to be more nimble with the committee. We could change meeting times if need be to meet the needs of the people who are serving on the committee. We could also meet if we only had a few people, and we could still do business. We could still move forward with plans and projects. And of course, this would free up administrative time for both the city and the Norman Arts Council. The fourth benefit is merging like missions and expanding definitions. The mission of the Public Arts Board and the NAC align perfectly. They always have. They've always aligned as we relate to public art. To have a meaningful public art program in Norman, instead of bifurcating between these two different groups, sometimes doubling efforts, sometimes achieving less by doing that, it really just makes more sense to unite and join forces to the benefit of all involved and to the people of Norman. Sharing resources, not duplicating work. This would open up more possibilities for Norman Public Arts Committee to work with the Arts Council. They could participate in and facilitate educational programming and workshops and dedications. We could work together on marketing. There is, again, some confusion in the community about where to go with questions about public art or projects in Norman, since right now there's really two different bodies that are operating. There's the Public Arts Board, and then there's Norman Arts Council with Norman Forward. So by creating one solid public art entity, that all could be really clearly clarified and identified. With the Norman Public Arts Committee working within the Norman Arts Council, we would also be able to help effectively raise more awareness of the donations to the utility bills, which has been the primary and historic way that the Public Arts Board is funded. We could focus our marketing efforts on expanding that funding mechanism. By integrating public art into the Norman Public Art Committee, we would also be able to expand the definition of public art to include projects that are within the public view, but not necessarily on public property. For example, there's already a strong support in the community for the Arts Council to start a mural program. Thinking of programs like the Sunny Days Mural Festival, which is happening this weekend in Edmond, and then the Plaza Walls Mural Festival, which happens a little bit later in October. These are mural festivals that take place on private property. So it's why the Arts Council has been kind of approached to start a program like this. But it would just make more sense if all of the public art was encapsulated in that. It doesn't matter to somebody walking down the street if that mural is on city property or private property. It's the same to them. We're also often asked to partner with or advise private businesses for large-scale works of art. For example, we are working right now to help Norman Economic Development Coalition create a large mural on the Commerce Building. So as part of the Norman Arts Council, public art would be free to pursue these expanded projects that, again, are within the public view, but not restricted to public property. And the fifth benefit is full-time staff support. The Public Arts Board doesn't have an office space or staff. However, as part of the Arts Council, they would have the home, the time, and the talents of the NAC. This makes it easier for them to work with the Arts Council board members, and it's also is a more open relationship between the board members who are interested in what's going on with public arts and giving them the opportunity to help further public arts. This would also simplify fundraising. Fundraising for public art would be integrated into all of the fundraising efforts of the Norman Arts Council. The NAC's marketing expertise could be put to use to create campaigns for public art, like I said, to raise awareness of utility bill donations. Additionally, Arts Council as a 501c3 can qualify to apply for public and private grants to support public art, and there are a lot of them out there. And then there would also be no concern that fundraising efforts would overlap, could confuse the general public, or even jeopardize current funding that is in place for either one of these agencies if it was all coordinated under a single entity. So, how would this work? The Arts Council Board has already considered this transition as being necessary for quite some time, and they approved this presentation that I'm giving to you at their board meeting on June 17th. Following that, we made we gave this presentation to Catherine and Jason, and Mayor Clark at the time. Mayor Harklow was out of town at the time. This is what that was about. So the Arts Council would continue the management of the public funds for public art, and the utility bill funds would be restricted to projects on city property. So we would still use those funds that are coming in through the utility bill, being transferred to the Norman Arts Council for public art projects. That relationship would not change at all. We've had a long relationship with the city of really just this kind of agreement. We've been responsible, as I said at the beginning, for millions of dollars of public funding. And we feel really confident that we can continue to manage the utility bill donations without the complexities of having a joint committee that's beholden to both the city and to the Norman Arts Council. And of course, all current Public Arts Board members are invited to remain on the committee, and we have spoken to everybody at this point, and I think they are all in support of this proposal, and are all eager to continue on the Public Arts Committee as well. So these would be the first goals of the Norman Public Arts Committee. The big thing is we want to expand involvement in the committee, open it up to more community members. We have already committed to a strategic planning facilitation specifically for public arts that would be funded by the Norman Arts Council. I've mentioned the mural program. We would like to begin advocating for a percent for arts to be included with Norman Forward 2, should there be a Norman Forward 2, and we hope that there is. Along with that, we'd want to take it a step further, based off of the successes of Norman Forward, to advocate for a permanent percent for art program in Norman. And we have already started talking about building artist-initiated project process and a funding mechanism for that in collaboration with a couple of the other committees of the Norman Arts Council. The board members of the NAC are very excited to be active in the Public Arts Committee. And we, as I said, we're aware of community members who are as well. We want to make this a very open committee to join so that we can expand public art access and education. We really feel like we're at an important juncture for public art in Norman right now. There's exciting possibilities ahead. Like I said, we've committed to fund the strategic plan that would be specific to public art, and we would want to embark on that right away. So that's our proposal to the city, and I'd be happy to address any questions that anybody might have.
Artist-initiated programs.
What is that?
Yeah.
So we do get approached by artists occasionally, and we're like, I've got this idea for a public art project in Norman. So they haven't gone through any kind of selection process. We haven't necessarily put out a request for proposals on anything, but they're just like, hey, we've got this project that we want to do. And actually, we did one this last year, which I will be talking a little bit about in our report to the Parks Board a little bit later today. But yeah, we don't really have a process for when an artist says, hey, I've got some backing, some funding, I want to do this art project in Norman, but they usually need a 501c3 to administer that so that funders can give donations to it, so that we have somebody who can successfully write a contract between that artist and the city if it's on city property. So those are all things that we can do. We just don't have a specific process in place for that. And so we want to be able to develop that. And additionally, we want to develop a funding mechanism for artists who have projects like that, to offer scholarships or smaller grants to help support projects.
It's a wonderful idea.
So you could see that as like maybe a collective of artists wanting to maybe work with like Norman Music Festival to do something like what the galleries do at South by, which is combine like the music fest, but then also the art component, because it's something that I've heard about from the community they would like to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of those, especially if they're sort of like site-specific, even temporary public art projects that happen during events like that, that is something that we would want to have an established process for so that artists know who to go to, how to get approval to do that, and how to maybe access some funding to do that as well.
And then just one more thing about like, so I guess it's kind of with the, I don't know if it would be like a funding mechanism or, so you'll have, who gets on to the art board if it's folded under to the NAC? Like, is there a rubric for, like you were saying about the guy who was not
Yeah.
given a reason why he didn't
Yeah.
get it. Is there-
So our committees are open to board members and community members, and we like to have a mix of both on all of our committees. So if somebody was interested in serving on that committee, all that they would have to do is reach out to us and say, hey, I'm really interested in public art. How do I get involved? And we're like, well, we have a committee for that. So we generally, this is the time of year that we start opening up our committees for people to express their interest, to sign up to be a part of. This is the time when we're starting to kind of plan what the next year is going to look like. So ideally, we would have somebody who is interested, kind of like this is about the time of year that they would come on to that committee. But it is not a nomination process. It is a volunteer process.
Okay, and so with that, you were also talking about how this would free them up to meet outside of Open Meetings Act, could have fewer. What is the accountability process if you only have a few people consistently meeting up?
Oh, that's a great question. So all of our committees, when they meet, they then draft a report and present the report to the Norman Arts Council Board at the monthly board meetings. So that's kind of how we're making sure that committees are getting work done. If there are new projects, those new projects would go through an approval process at the Arts Council level. If they're projects that are on city property, then we would then go through Jason and start talking about like, okay, we've got this project that we want to do in this park. We would hope that Parks is still on the committee as well, so that we always have that connection as in addition to that. So.
I think one of the things that interests me in this, maybe it's a question for Mr. Francisco, in understanding if we're gonna give them money and we have no say in that committee, how do we make sure that the city's aim or city's function is still, we're paying for the right thing? I've got this up in logical.
Well, I would think first off, involvement in the committee itself.
Okay.
You can, ask individuals to volunteer to be on the committee. I would think if the council wanted to appoint somebody, the committee wouldn't kick them off, sort of thing.
Well, we've got Jason.
But secondly, the Arts Council has to report on their expenditures.
Okay,
They make reports.
that's the time.
Yeah, so Jason and I talked about this the other day too. This was kind of his idea is that, in an hour, I'm going to be presenting to the Parks Board on the activities of the Public Arts Board over the last year. That would continue.
Okay,
So we would continue to have that reporting mechanism as well.
so it's not a total pass.
No, and we would still continue to do like the Artful Inlets project, the sculptures in the parks project, any other city property projects that we would still continue to. That relationship really doesn't change. This just allows us to expand things.
If I may, the one thing I would say is that historically, one of the major reasons that the council wanted there to be a separated arts council is that there wouldn't be a political process for choosing public art or for choosing music and that sort of thing. So that you wouldn't, I remember, for example, there was this exhibit of Angelina Jolie, right? And there would have been a large political uprising if it were not separated from the council. And the council wants to have that kind of arm's length relationship.
Well, thank you, sir.
And I'll add too is that it's a very, very familiar with what she was talking about, reporting back to the park board that we have that with the Depot, Sooner Theater,
Yeah.
and the Firehouse Arts Center. So that it'd be something that's familiar to the Parks Board, and the involvement with the city would be a great connection to that avenue.
Other questions from staff or Mr. Manager? Concerns? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't-
So it's kind of following along with what Mr. Francisco was saying about, I guess, I kind of want to know a little bit about the history, like why was this committee formed as part of the city? And you had mentioned that for years you guys have tried to get this underneath NAC. So what was the delay? Why was there pushback, or why hasn't it already moved?
Do you want to start with the history?
Yes. So this was created, I think, in 2007. And it was the first time the city offered the opportunity to give to the Norman, to public art on your utility bill. I don't recall why we did an ordinance instead of just a contract amendment, but we went forward with an ordinance and created this committee to kind of oversee the expenditure of those funds of public art because it was going to be on city property. So that was the first time for that angle of the relationship. I don't know if you want to address the second part.
Well, and kind of to expand on that too, I mean, I have sort of related this to like joint custody of a child. You know, when the Public Arts Board was born, this setup made complete sense. We hadn't started doing large scale public art projects. This was handling city funds specifically for public art on city property. And again, the Arts Council was sort of that organization that had the sort of the creative expertise to be able to run a creative project like this. So it made total sense then. Fast forward 16 years later, when we have Norman Forward, Public Arts Board is an adolescent now, a teenager now, and the shared custody doesn't necessarily work as well. It's becoming more cumbersome than it is useful. And so we now believe that with the experience that we've had specifically with the Norman Forward projects and working on these much larger scale public art projects, dealing with much larger pots of public funding, that it just makes sense to have it all in one place. The discussion really started right before COVID. This is when we really started kind of having these conversations, and we feel like COVID, like it has with everything else in our lives, just has prolonged us being able to get to this point to make this proposal to the city. You know, with COVID, we've gone through several leadership changes on the Public Arts Board, which has also prevented it from being able to move forward and to keep having forward motion on programs and projects. So we feel like that this is just kind of became exactly the right time. We're down to only 4 of 7 board positions even being filled right now. So it seems like if there's going to be a time to make a change with it, that this is the time.
So-
And we've also learned now the scale of dollars we're dealing with. It seems to be pretty regular and reoccurring. And on the utility bill side, we're not talking millions, we're talking thousands. So it's not a big overburdened bucket of money. I think it's very manageable, and yeah, to have too much administrative overhead hassle for a bucket of money that size it just does not make sense. And it seems to be a pretty constant level of contribution from people on their utility bills.
Yeah, I actually just got the report today, and kind of glancing back through it, it's about $400 a quarter right now. So about $1,200, or I'm sorry, $4,000 a quarter, about $10,000 to $12,000 a year is what we're talking about.
So then just to understand that this board was initially formed in 2007 just purely because we were raising money through utility bills for the Norman Arts Council?
Or specifically for
public
on
art.
city property.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we partnered with Norman Arts Council to start distributing that to artists. So really, that's kind of been the only function, is how are we going to distribute the money that's been raised and
Yeah,
give it
the
to...
committee has worked on, they've done proposal requests and vetted proposals and how to spend those monies on public art. I know Aaron knows more than I do what art projects they've done, but that's been their function all this time.
And I think that this is a good idea to merge this. I mean, it makes sense, you know, if obviously we're holding things up if we don't have enough people on a board to make a quorum. Like, I get that. But I will challenge you in saying that I don't think that this, combining these, would help you to increase community involvement or community awareness, since all that this board was doing was just raising money. I think that that's something that Norman Arts Council has struggled with on its own and could really work towards doing outside of this. So what have you guys done to really push community involvement and increase awareness for local artists?
Yeah, no, that's a completely fair question. And actually, the Public Arts Board is not a fundraising board. They weren't raising money. They were pretty passive about that, actually. And that's one thing that we want to change, is that we actually want to put more effort into raising money so that we can increase. So it's not just the utility bill donation that we're talking about. It's access to grants. It's including it as a option on any of our fundraising campaigns, that you can designate that your donation goes to public art, or you can designate that it goes to art education, or any of those things. So and then we have a pretty fantastic publicity and promotion person on our staff who has created a really iconic identity for the Norman Arts Council in the community. And when we put out a fundraising drive, each year we consistently get more and more donations, so that we're confident that we could add to the money that goes to public art. We have excellent grant writers on staff who could focus, and we're already working on a grant for a public art project in Andrews Park.
So your community involvement or awareness is solely around fundraising?
No.
That's what you're
No,
meaning?
I'm just
with
saying
that?
that's the fundraising piece of it. No,
Right, but that's
yeah.
what I'm saying. In your presentation, whenever you said to increase community involvement and increase awareness, by bringing the board into NAC, were you just solely then talking about for fundraising efforts?
No, I'm talking about getting new people on the Public Arts Committee, getting people who are interested in being active in public arts, to knowing about how public arts work in the community, to inviting them into the process. They're not invited into the process right now. But if this was an open committee on the Norman Arts Council, they could come to a committee meeting, they could check it out, they could see what it is that we talk about, and if they wanted to sign up, they could sign up to be on that committee.
Has this board prevented NAC from doing that, from getting public involvement or forming your own type of committee for
Yes.
public information?
Yeah, it is a board and commission of the city of Norman.
But I'm saying for NAC to do something on its own to,
Why would we want to compete
Increase-
with the Public Arts Board?
I'm not saying the Public Arts Board, I'm just saying for NAC to increase community awareness and involvement, have you guys formed something within your group to work towards doing that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we have the Equity and Justice Committee that we started not quite a year ago. Actually, just about a year ago now. So we've started that, and we are actively looking at ways to make all of our processes more open and accessible to people in the community, to understand that the arts are for everybody. And if you want to be involved, you just come and ask us about it, and we'll tell you like where you can get plugged in and what you can do, or how the arts can serve another group that you're working with. So absolutely, we're trying to expand those conversations all the time.
Okay.
Anything else? Oh, boy, I just have to get new glasses.
Really, so just, would you go over how the Norman Arts Council Board is appointed?
They're nominated. So we go through a nominations process annually. We put out a call to the public. If you're interested in serving, now's the time to submit your letter of interest and your qualifications, why you would want to serve on the Arts Council Board. And then those are presented to the board annually. We do that May or June, and then the board votes in new members, depending on how many openings we have. We have a max of 25 board members.
25 board members, okay. And part of that process, I mean, that's a lot of positions to fill for sure. But just making sure that there is a way for people to get appointed, and it's not some sort of your buddies on there or anything like that, or.
So the committees are different, though. So like, as it stands right now, if you wanted to serve on the Public Arts Board, you would have to be appointed by the mayor, or there's Norman Arts Council has one seat that they appoint. The Arts and Humanities Roundtable has 2 seats that they appoint, and Visit Norman has an appointment. So it has to be by appointment. So it can't just be like, I want to serve on the Public Arts Committee. You can't do that right now. That's what we're wanting to change. So we're wanting to make it like all of our other committees, which are completely open to anybody on the board or in the community who have that particular interest in the arts to serve on those committees.
And currently, though, the Norman Arts Council, if somebody wants to serve on the Norman Arts Council board,
They have to go through the nomination
they
process.
go through a process,
Yes.
and the current members of the board decide who gets on
Yes.
based off of a criteria, or just we're all friends with somebody, or
No, we do. We've
donated
actually
money or-
moved to more of an open nomination process, and we have the last few years. So what we do is we put out a call to the public, post it on our social media and our website, and if anybody's interested, they fill out a pretty simple form on our an electronic form. They write a letter of interest, tell us why they're interested in serving on the Arts Council board, include their resume, any other public service that they've done in the past. Then we compile all of those each year, and those are presented to the board. And depending how many seats we have open, they'll decide who out of those nominees. And it's mostly a self-nomination process at this point.
and there's 25 members.
Yes.
Do you get 25?
We are currently at 22, I think. So we were down to, I guess, 18 on our board. We had 4 people who self-nominated this last round. All 4 of them were accepted, and one of them decided that it wasn't a good fit for him at the moment. And so now we're at, I guess, 21 or 22.
Are you able to get a full, like everybody's able to come to those meetings, or do you get like 10 or?
We occasionally have problems with the quorum. We're seeing it more now than we had before COVID. We're having more of an, and I kind of mentioned that in this. It's hard right now for nonprofits to get people who are willing to give up their personal time for service like that. It's a big commitment. We are actively trying to work through that process right now as well. We are looking at things like when our board meets, how often they meet, how to make that more accessible. It's a process. And that's the beauty of committee work, is that we can be much more flexible with meeting times. It's smaller groups of people. But with the board itself, we are looking at it, and we're trying to figure out, we've been meeting at this same time for the last, 20 years. Does that still work for everybody? So
Right.
we're working through that process. It's not something that you can just change overnight. It's something that kind of needs to be carefully considered too, because you are dealing with 20 to 25 people with vastly different backgrounds and needs, and when they're able to give up their personal time to serve.
Okay. Well, it does seem that the PAB was created as a financial oversight committee. And I agree, it's not a very large sum of money comparatively to have a whole committee, like having to appoint people and staff and all that stuff. So I do see the points in that for sure. I probably would be interested to hear what our appointed members of the Public Arts Board do think about it, if they do. You said they support it. I mean,
Yeah, we only one could be here today. One of the 4. The other 3 are all out of town. But yes, we did meet about a week and a half ago. And we went through this exact presentation, and we talked about the history and like why, like, this does make sense. Why have we not done it sooner? So we definitely feel the support of everybody that's currently on the Public Arts Board, that this is a direction that we would want to go in.
okay, so what are the next steps, I guess?
Next step would be to make a recommendation as to what you guys' feeling is should this be recommended to a study session question? And so that can be voted on, and then I guess we just take a vote to release, or I don't know what that would be called.
Ordinance amendment, Catherine?
Yeah, it'll be an
Ordinance
ordinance amendment and maybe a contract amendment. It just depends on what we can work out. But that would come to council. We can present that to the full study session if you all are okay with moving forward with it. We can get to work on that and and bring it forward at a study session.
I'll agree.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It does to me too. So that would be my recommendation. Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I would just say that when we all join arms and move together as one, we can get a lot more done.
I would agree.
So, you know, having two separate entities, being in the public, I didn't know who to go to, and to have it all under one umbrella, it removes all kinds of confusion. And as a 501c3, I'm a development professional. That's what I do. I raise money. So that opens up a tremendous amount of funding opportunities that will just grow. And I mean, Oklahoma City just for the second year in a row got ranked #1 city for public art in the country.
We
So
can't have that.
we can have that. We can totally have that. So I think the biggest thing is we're just all joining arms together.
Somehow the most unhealthy city in the United States, too. They're not walking to look at it, I guess.
Get a bike. I think
It's
it's,
just very exciting. I just see a lot of potential, especially not being tied down to just properties owned by the city.
yeah.
That we can expand that even more onto private properties. So it's just
Well,
very exciting.
As I've explained to Aaron, this is one of my dreams in life, is seeing Norman have more public art. And the same question that why do you go to Rome? Why do you go to Paris? Why do you go to London?
Massive economic development. We have great public art for people to come see.
Sure. And this is part of it. And I agree with council members that we should go ahead. So,
We'll get to work on that and bring it back to a study session.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you all.
Okay, we have anything else from anybody? It's easy, we're done. Thank you, Bryce.